Welcome to the monthly movie dispatch, the movie review show from friends you can trust. Every week we broadcast and review a new film, talk about some film news, recommend what to watch. We've been talking and critiquing and gushing over movies since we were in high school, and we aim to bring you honest conversation about relevant cinema. I'm
hmm
Derek Deal. I'm here with Sean Bolby.
Hey, I'm Shaun.
How's it going?
It's going good. It's a nice day
It's our
here.
yeah, it's our first episode together in the new
Yeah,
format.
yeah. Odd. Yeah, we were together for the Judas and the Black Messiah.
All right, yeah, the big
Yeah, the
four man.
first one, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been kind of weird trying to
hmm
schedule all these just because
Yeah, it's always
so
it's.
many movies and
I almost want to like draw wild conclusions about like what movies. What is it about my taste in movies and Brandon's and Derek or Brandon's and Nick's that kind of drew us more together than me and you, or you and
right.
or what? And I think Brandon and Nick haven't done an episode together. Is that correct? Or
I think that was the case for a
yeah,
while. I think they did break that. I can't
okay,
remember what movie it was for.
yeah,
Maybe not, but either way,
mm-hmm.
so tonight we're gonna review the movie Old, directed by M. Night Shyamalan.
Mm-hmm.
But first, let's talk about M. Night for a minute. I think I know I do, and I think we probably have a similar relationship with him. Is like he's
Mm-hmm.
for me at least, he was kind of a in high school and stuff. He was a really big influence on me and my film taste, and
Mm-hmm.
getting to experience kind of his like golden era, you know,
Uh-huh.
of his first three films,
Yeah,
and
I pretty much followed him religiously for his early career, and
yeah,
I've seen all but one of his movies. I haven't seen The Visit, and yeah,
you should check it out. It's actually really
yeah,
good.
that's what everyone
I like it a
says.
lot. But
hmm
yeah, so what I mean, I'm sure we're all gonna be. I mean, I'm sure we're both gonna be pretty similar on this. But what are kind of like? What do you think are his? What do you consider his best movies?
So, in my mind, even though I think I've only seen it once or twice, like way back in the day, I think The Sixth Sense pretty clearly stands out to me as his best.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, just from what I've definitely seen a bunch of videos and kind of essays about the movie, and it really seems like it does hold up quite a bit. Although I haven't personally seen it in probably a decade at this point.
Hmm.
So I do want to get back to it and rewatch it. Actually, I kind of want to watch it with my niece and nephew when they are old enough to not be too
Yeah.
scared. But
Right.
I think that would be a ton of fun.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then I guess I'm kind of tied. I can't really decide between Split and Signs. Would
Okay.
probably be my next two.
Yeah.
Again, Signs, it's been a while, probably not as long as The Sixth Sense, but I really enjoyed Split. And I just remember watching Signs back in the day and just being absolutely terrified. There is something about the way he does that movie where just like seeing a leg move is just, made me scream in
Oh
terror.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's probably what I would go with.
Those three.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's for me like Signs is far and away his best.
Hmm.
It's definitely my favorite. It's one that's like, yeah, it's always stuck with me. Um, I think that's been the biggest like influence on me too, as far as my taste and everything goes. Like
Yeah.
it was when that movie came out, that was everything for me for
Yeah.
years. It's just like everything compared to Signs, and
Yeah.
it's a good movie. Like just it's just really well made, and the scares especially like really haunted me. Like
hmm
there's
Yeah.
just something about some of their like the simplicity in them that like it's so like the horror is so relatable because it's
Yeah,
so
it's a
like subtle and like
small family dealing with their own little family issues, and it's
yeah.
just like, yeah, it's a worldwide invasion movie boiled down to this one kind of
House.
half broken family.
Yeah.
There's something kind of cool about that, and
Yeah.
I'm totally agree with you. That movie was hugely influential on me back in the day. Probably, definitely more so than The Sixth Sense, which I think is probably a better movie.
Yeah.
I just watched Signs. I've seen that movie so many times, and
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Even just the opening credits. Sometimes I'll just watch the opening credits
huh?
because they're just like they're so the score like just gets me so like jacked up for the movie. And
Nice.
but yeah, then I'd say Split's definitely right there. Like it's one of those M. Night movies that's it's almost like it kind of takes his like newer like version of himself and just kind of perfects it because it's just like it's really weird and like
Mm-hmm.
bizarre and like such a strange like thing. But it's really good. Like it has all the stuff that makes M. Night great.
Mm-hmm.
It's got like unique cinematography and like these weird performances, but they click, like they all work
Yeah.
really well. And then, yeah, I'd probably say The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable. They're both pretty close to me. I feel like Sixth Sense is probably a better movie. It's been a
Mm-hmm.
while since I've seen it too, but I mean, it's definitely his more recognizably better movie. I think he got nominated for like Best Picture even with that
Mm-hmm.
movie.
Didn't he
So
win? Did he win best original screenplay?
I'm not sure. I
But
know I think he got the like the big three nominations. He got
mm-hmm.
the Best Director, Best Picture, and Best Screenplay. But I don't
Mm.
know
Let's
if
see if
he
I can
won
quickly
any of them.
find this.
But I think
Um,
talking about that movie is also a good kind of like segue into his career because like that was his first like big studio film
mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it
definitely.
was so huge and so successful
Uh
and
huh.
all these awards and stuff. And I know at the time, especially like by the time you get to Signs, it's now his third like giant hit.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, "This is the next Spielberg. This is the next
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
Hitchcock." Like,
I heard the next Hitchcock a bunch. That's
yeah,
what I remember hearing everyone talk about. And just I looked it up, and it was nominated for 6 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor, Haley Joel Osment. That
oh
was
right,
another
yeah,
one that was like, that was a big, like, everyone was talking about that performance, and he was like
mm-hmm.
a big star for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Collette was also nominated for supporting
Oh yeah,
actor actress, and
Tony
then
Collette's so
director
good.
and writing, and then editing as well. So
Yeah, yeah, it's a big like first big movie.
yeah, definitely.
Um, and everyone has their theories about what that did to like his career, like and his
Hmm.
mindset and like his
Yeah,
whatever.
it's always
But
hard to talk about that kind of stuff because you never really know.
yeah,
And
no one really knows.
hmm.
But what we do know is his career's had a lot of weird ups and downs, and he's made some incredible films that are, there's a whole generation of
Yeah.
filmmakers that kind of grew up with that and really look up to him in those early films. And then there's a whole nother like I don't know, another generation probably of people that grew up on his later career and were
Yeah.
like, he's just this classic, like terrible director that,
Hmm.
nobody has
Yeah.
respect for.
Hmm.
Um, and now he's in this other part of his career where he's just kind of all over the place. He makes some really great movies, then some weird ones, and but I think since The Visit, I think he's doing good. Like
Hmm.
I haven't seen any movies that I really dislike. In
Yeah.
fact, like The Visit and Split, I really, really like, and I
Hmm.
think Glass is pretty good.
Yeah.
And I thought this movie was all right. So,
Hmm. Yeah,
um,
I'd kind of agree with that.
yeah. So,
Um,
yeah. Do you have something else you want to add about M
no,
Night before we get into the?
yeah, he really did have. I wanted to throw out some of his weirder movies, like Lady
Yeah.
in the Water, is just a completely baffling movie. Maybe on a rewatch, I'd have to decide on whether it's a a good weird or a bad weird. I mean, it's definitely a bad weird, but it's just
Yeah.
like it's so bizarre that I don't know if it, if I would get some kind of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
And then the Last Airbender was, everyone
Yeah.
knows about that movie. So,
Actually, the one movie I haven't seen of his is After Earth. It's the only one I haven't seen.
I haven't seen that one either. And he actually has a few earlier movies before The Sixth Sense, which I had never even heard of.
I've seen his Rosie O'Donnell baseball movie. I've seen that one, but then he made one more, I think.
Wide Awake and
Praying with Anger.
I recognize this poster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but I do recognize the poster. And then Praying with Anger, starring M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, I think that was a student film that he made.
Okay, and then did he write? Yeah, he has some writing credits. He wrote Stuart Little, Devil, or he did the story for Devil. He wrote After Earth, but he. That was kind of more Will Smith's project.
Yeah,
And then he also did a TV show. Did you watch Servant?
So I've watched the first season of
Wayward
Servant.
Pines.
I haven't watched Wayward Pines, but the first season of Servant is incredible. Really, really good. The second season just came out on Apple.
Okay. All right.
He also, fun fact is he ghost wrote, it's under a different name, She's All That.
Oh.
And he's talked about it in interviews where he was like, or he rewrote it or something. He was brought in.
Yeah.
Yeah, before he made Sixth Sense and stuff.
Nice. So really, really all over the place career. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But I guess let's just get talking about his new movie, Old. Yeah, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, obviously. It stars... Shoot, I didn't pull up...
many people.
Yeah, it's got a giant cast. Alex Wolff, Thomasin McKenzie, Gail Garcia Bernal, Abby Lee Kershaw. It's a lot of...
Thomasin McKenzie.
So there's a couple, younger actors that are pretty big right now, and then a lot of... Pretty much everyone in the movie you've seen, on TV or
definitely.
They're all recognizable actors, but I don't necessarily recognize their names. But it's a pretty big cast.
It was cool to see the guy who played Guy, Gail Garcia Bernal. He did some Michel Gondry movies back in the day.
Oh, really?
And he was in Y Tu Mamá También, and he's popped up at different points and is a pretty cool actor. He's been in some interesting.
He was I haven't seen him in much, but I know I think he had a really big Amazon show that was pretty big for a while too. That's what I recognized him most from.
Zorro. Looks like he may be playing Zorro in a Zorro movie that is in pre-production. I just clicked on it.
Interesting.
That'll be interesting. You definitely
about Zorro.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome casting of Zorro. I'm into that.
Yeah. But okay, so Old.
Yeah, Old. What were we talking about?
The plot of Old is a family on vacation takes the opportunity to visit a secret exclusive beach. What sounds like an experience of a lifetime turns out to be an experience of their lifetime.
I see what they did there.
The reason we picked this movie is it's M. Night, and he's just one of those directors I'm always going to watch every movie he makes. It's just it's always a wild surprise of what you get. So in this movie in particular, there's a lot to talk about because it's just a strange movie. It's really strange. My initial thoughts of it are, I think it's fine. Like I definitely enjoyed myself watching it. I had a lot of fun. I was smiling for large portions of it, whether it's because of cheesiness or because it was like a really crazy premise, and I was like, how is this happening right now?" Um, but it's just such a weird movie, and it's, from top to bottom feels like M. Night Shyamalan. So, it's got all the his classic things that people either love him or hate him for. It's got the cheesy dialogue. It's got a lot of weird performances. It's like they're just strange line deliveries,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got the awkward children, but it's also got like really interesting cinematography at times. Do some
Mm-hmm.
cool stuff. It's got some neat visuals. It's got some pretty chilling scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got a kind of a surprise. I'm not going to call it a twist, but it's got a surprise ending. So yeah, overall, I thought it was fine. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'd recommend checking it out, but it would be hard for me to be like, you're gonna love this movie.
Yeah, definitely.
But what's your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'm less as I'm definitely probably more on the dislike side of the fence. I guess I'm kind of I don't know how much more patience I have for M. Night. Even though,
Yeah.
we just did get done talking about the fact that we actually quite liked two of his last three movies, and Glass we actually enjoyed in spite of many faults.
Mhm.
But I think he's been making a lot of the same mistakes for a really long time.
Mhm.
And I think with this movie, I just didn't have the patience for those mistakes. Or maybe it didn't have anything to outweigh the mistakes,
Mhm.
which is the very, very clunky dialogue, the bizarre pacing that he has in a lot of his movies. Like not just pacing, but like the way he lingers on certain things and then just blows past certain things in
Mhm.
weird ways. I wasn't very forgiving of his style. He definitely, there is a style there, and there were some things that made me perk up and say, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of interesting.
Mhm.
But like, I think for the most part, I could, to get into some nitpicky things like some, there was so like one shot was, you just have one character talking, and then the camera would just start panning around in a circle, showing all the other characters in the circle, and they're just standing there looking at the main that character talking. They're not reacting to anything. They're not giving
Right.
anything. They're not doing it. It's almost like um he just kind of refuses to shoot some things in conventional ways because he doesn't want to, or
Right.
again, like I said this earlier, it's hard to get into the heads of directors. Maybe he had some very purposeful reasons that he chose to shoot some scenes like that. But like another scene, and this happened 2 or 3 times in the movie, where it would just kind of be a kind of a medium shot of multiple characters looking towards camera, and the camera would just, and it's like a really intense scene. One of the scenes was actually
Yeah.
the tumor scene. I
Yeah.
won't say anything more than that, but the tumor scene, it's like a really intense scene, and the camera just starts like very slowly zooming in past the um any of the characters, to the
Mhm.
point where you're only seeing like half of anyone's face and mostly just sky behind them. And
Yeah.
I really got, obviously this wasn't intentional, but what I got from that was like it was indicative of the way I was feeling about a lot of the movie, where like there's kind of something interesting happening, but I just kind of start
staring at the sky.
Like, oh, that's what's that over? Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. We got a M Night movie going. Oh, it's that. Just, oh, look at that butterfly. It's just.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Oh yeah. So, I don't know. Some of the cinematography was interesting, but it's a lot of it's just kind of weird, and the stuff that was kind of interesting wasn't. It didn't feel like it was a part of a whole cohesive style or tone or anything like that.
Yeah.
It very much felt like it was, he didn't want to shoot anything conventionally, and so he was coming up with weird ways to shoot his scenes or something.
Yeah. I
Or
can agree
maybe
with
he's a
that.
genius and I just don't get it, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of
um,
weird on these movies too, because I think he's like self-funding them now,
mhm,
and so it's like,
yeah.
yeah, who knows? Like he's not, no, probably isn't really answering to many people and
Hmm.
just kind of doing his own
And
thing.
he's
But
like he's a guy that he's not losing anyone any money. I don't know if it's all
yeah,
self-funded, but even if it's not, he's not, no one who gives him money is going to end up losing money at this point,
right,
I feel like.
yeah,
And then there's always the chance that it's like a split or a
yeah,
glass. Um, but he's by and large a pretty safe bet. I think he's really good at delivering a movie that's going to make money with a very modest budget.
hmm
And definitely give him credit for that. And he's definitely going to be making movies until he gets
so
tired
yeah,
of it, until he
yeah,
until he doesn't want to.
yeah, yeah.
But
I totally get what you're saying though. Like I definitely felt that way multiple times throughout the movie, where I'm just like you almost start to stop. You're not like you don't stop watching, but you're kind of like you get pulled out of the story constantly because
hmm
of how strange like things are delivered and like,
hmm
but in all ways, whether it's the actors, whether it's like the dialogue or yeah, what's happening on the camera, it's like it all of them are constantly like not working together.
hmm
And it's like every once in a while they sync up and then that's a good scene usually.
yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah. Um
Yeah, to say some good things about it, I will, I mentioned a tumor scene, which I won't say
yeah.
anything more, but like that was a pretty intense scene aside from maybe just that one shot.
Yeah.
It was kind of crazy and, you know, ridiculous, but
Yeah.
there was some intensity there. There was some tension, and that was definitely enjoyable. There were a few other scenes like that, especially you said that there were some pretty frightening scenes or scary scenes, especially towards the end. That was that they were pretty shocking. Um, but yeah, mostly I was not into the movie, and like I think it really does have a lot of much bigger plot issues as well, where there's not really any, or at least I didn't feel like anything that happened really carried any emotional stakes past the
Mm,
scene that it happened in. It doesn't like, nothing really happens where it's revisited emotionally later on in the movie. Um, People just kind of die and they're just discarded
there's
from the
not like
movie.
stakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and we'll get into more details about that in the spoilers, because
Yeah.
it's very easy to spoil this movie.
Yeah. For
But
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think one of my big nitpicks about the movie is, and maybe it felt like he was making a horror movie. Like this seemed like it was supposed to be a horror movie, but there's so many opportunities in this movie to make things really scary, and they just for I have no idea why, but they just choose not like he just chose not to put anything frightening there. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole plot point, and this isn't really spoilery. It's kind of brought up pretty early. Actually, I think it's even in the trailers. Is they can't leave the beach
Mm-hmm.
because they like black out. It's like that's a good opportunity to make something like scary or
Mm-hmm.
like frightening or tense. Instead, they just cut to black, and then they
Yeah.
just wake up on the beach. And it's
Uh-huh.
like, why did you? Why
Yeah.
is that even in the movie if you're not gonna do anything with it. I
Definitely.
don't.
I mean, aside from just an explanation for why they have to stay there.
Right. But it's like the most bland as you can get
Definitely.
as
And
far
I
as.
and I think like that's one thing like the movie suffers from a bit, and maybe there are some other reasons for why the movie is like this, but it chooses not to show a lot of things. Back to the tumor, like
Right.
what happens there. It doesn't. He chooses not to show that kind of stuff, and even like the scary like, there's a lot of moments like with there's a guy who kind of starts losing it, and kind of going crazy, and they don't show any of that element. They don't really like dwell on it, and maybe he was trying to ride a PG-13 rating.
Yeah.
Maybe, or maybe he just thinks it's better to not show, it's better what you don't show type thing.
Right.
But I don't feel like it worked for this movie because it didn't,
Yeah.
it didn't build, it didn't assist in building tension or
Right.
building suspense. It just,
Yeah.
or
You
it
got to at
didn't
least
make the movie scary.
insinuate what
Yeah.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like at times don't even do that. They're just like, something happened.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways. And
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah. Can you think we can talk about the ending at all without
I figured
spoiling, or
let's
just like general thoughts about?
I mean I think maybe we'll just move into spoilers sooner rather than later. But think what else? Yeah, I'm trying to think of like if there's anything big that I really liked that wasn't a spoiler. And I'm not sure that there really is. So
I mean, there's some
uh,
themes that this movie's going for. Like all M. Night movies have kind of big ideas and pretty on the nose themes.
mhm.
And again, I felt like this movie, like many of his other movies, perhaps a bit too much like The Happening, was way too on the nose.
Mhm.
Not a very interesting point that he was trying to make, or he wasn't, what he was trying to say with the movie isn't very interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think it really worked. I don't think the way he delivered his theme was particularly interesting, or didn't really add anything to any conversations. Not that any movie has to, but
Yeah.
you have to deliver on something, and that's one of many things that he didn't really deliver on.
Yeah. I can agree with that. Yeah, it's just like a lot of this movie. It's just kind of like there's just like no wind in the
Mm-hmm.
sails of whatever it is he's trying to do. Just like,
Mm-hmm.
but
I will say, like, we mentioned this before we started. Brandon and Nick both enjoyed it more than we did. So, and I think
yeah,
Nick was fairly into the movie. I think he thoroughly enjoyed it. So,
yeah,
there's enjoyment to be had, especially knowing that you're getting into an M. Night movie, and you're in for a weird ride, and if you just accept it,
yeah,
and but yeah.
yeah. Well, let's move into spoilers.
Okay.
Some of the stuff might not be so spoilery, but
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be easier to talk about the movie
Yeah.
once we're past that threshold. So, from here on out, we're gonna talk about spoilers for old. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it,
Mm-hmm.
and then come back. So, um, I guess like one of the things I wanted to talk about that confused me. This is just more of a specific plot point that I was trying to like understand in my head. Was did you get the relation between that scene with the girl that goes swimming, and the guys with her like on the beach, and then like it cuts to I think that might be like one of the first scenes of the movie. This girl like goes skinny
Yeah.
dipping or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts to like it goes to like the hotel, like all the opening stuff, and then they come back to the beach and the guy's still sitting there on the beach. And that whole like I get that it was like a setup for this is just a part of the list of things that just like really jarred, like it it like made so little sense that I start like getting lost immediately in like
Mm-hmm.
what little bit of narrative is happening in that story. And it's like they come back and the guy's still hanging out there, and I just never fully understood that his whole story or anything about what was happening with that character.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I guess this is really this. I guess this kind of applies to everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
that was today when I was like really thinking about the movie and like trying to come up with my opinions and like that character specifically
Yeah.
was like really throwing me for a loop because I was like, why? He's pretty much completely has no effect on anything,
Mm-hmm.
but they have like full scenes dedicated to like they
Yeah.
have full scenes that are just him, and it has like nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, you kind of like from that opening scene and the way he's like kind of the outsider of the group because
Yeah,
so he was already on the beach before anyone else gets there. He and that girl. I didn't overthink that opening scene. I just kind
yeah,
of got the feeling that she just went out for a swim and swam out a little too far and then blacked out and died, just like the other people that
right.
happened to. I don't even know if she, they were already aware that they were aging or whatever. And I don't know how long that guy was there. But yeah, he's just like, because he's like an outsider and he's been there longer, and the way that like they almost show him as being like, who is this guy? What's he doing here? He has this
Right.
weird nosebleed thing.
Oh yeah, they never even addressed that.
I guess like as I just said that, I wonder if that was his illness.
Hmm.
He had chronic nosebleeds, and so they were testing out chronic nosebleed
There is a scene where
medication on him.
he like fills in like the audience, I guess. But I don't remember what he said because it's so that was even so distracting because he's just like walking on the beach and just does like this really quick information dump. He like says his name, his like
Mm-hmm.
issues, his address. He like
Yeah.
just lists everything out real
Yeah.
quick, and then they like cut away from it.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah, there was like I watched
there's a lot of that in this movie.
I watched a clip of the guy from Lost,
Yeah,
the actor from Lost.
Ooh, that guy.
His like not his first scene, but
And Lung.
what or his first, like one of his first scenes is, "Hi, my name is this. I'm a nurse. This is my wife. Her name is this. She has epilepsy." And
Mhm.
that was literally his. It's like, okay, buddy.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of like really awkward, like just saying
it's just
who they are. Don't waste
really
time.
poor writing.
Um,
Um,
yeah, so he was a baffling character, and then he gets killed off very quickly. There's like a little bit of tension between him and the doctor
yeah,
guy, and he just gets thrown away. And you kind of get the sense that obviously he was going for the doctor's racist, and
right.
that's why he didn't trust him. And even later on in the movie, you get the sense that there may have been something else in his past that he was accused of being racist for.
Yeah.
But they don't really get into that. So, but that's another example of like a theme that is just not well executed. Doesn't have anything to say about it. Doesn't have anything to do with the plot. Doesn't do anything. It's just kind of, I don't know, just
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
they kind of devote this entire character to that,
Mm.
but don't do anything with him or the idea. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a baffling character.
So many baffling characters in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I guess real quick, let me just give a rundown of like kind of like the contextual event at the end that kind of
Mm-hmm.
helps you understand what was happening is that there's like a pharmaceutical company that's, I'm guessing, kind of like illegally using this beach that they found that has some weird like magnetic
Mm-hmm.
properties that cause people to age very quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can run like essentially like tests on these people with different, they can test out medications and stuff, and they can test out long term what these things do, if they cure things or if they make things worse, and they can test them really quickly and actually
Mm-hmm.
cure things
You
on
can
a much
see what the
faster.
long-term effects of this drug are on
Right.
someone in an afternoon, rather than actually having to wait 30 years to see what the
Which,
side
like,
effects are or whatever.
yeah, and like that's a cool idea. Like that's pretty fun. Like especially for a horror movie, like
Mm-hmm.
there's like that once they introduced that, like that part of what kind of made the movie worse for me was that like that opened up so many things of what he could have done with this
Mm-hmm.
movie, and
Yeah.
there could have been so many interesting, there's a lot of things to do with that premise, I
Yeah.
think. Um
Like, I wouldn't even
and it,
say that that has anything to do with the premise of this movie. It's like it's so like in the it's so tacked on at the end.
mm,
Um and it kind of explains some aspects of the movie, but it doesn't, like, it's not a thing that was at play throughout the movie. They're just like on this beach aging and like trying to figure out what to do.
right.
And this pharmaceutical thing that's going on doesn't have anything to do with what they're doing on the beach. Um, it doesn't really, I guess that's the reason why the resort is there. But it's just, I don't know. It just
Yeah.
plays such a little small role in the story of the movie, as opposed to like, being a big reveal that is like feels important, or some kind of big twist that you didn't expect and you didn't see coming. It was just kind of
Right.
eh.
And that's kind of the issue with telling a story this way, which he does a lot, and a lot of thrillers do. Like they
Mm-hmm.
have, the big event at the end that kind of recontextualizes what you watched.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like this movie, I think would have benefited from maybe setting that up early on.
Mm-hmm.
And like in my head, what I thought would have been really fun is if the characters knew and they were stuck on this beach and like
Yeah.
they knew like exactly what was going on and
Yeah,
like what kind of
somehow.
crazy interactions you'd get from that. Like
Yeah.
that, there's a lot of opportunity to make a really like legit, like, intense kind of horror movie on this beach where everybody knows they're dying within like 24 hours,
Uh-huh.
and like,
Yeah.
instead there's a lot of just like, what's going on? And they're just like
Yeah, there's a lot of what's going
confused
on
and
and no one really. And then like there's a moment where um again, let me find his name. The lost actor,
yeah, I looked it up. It's like Ken Long.
yeah, Ken Long.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just has a line where he's, and this was a kind of a baffling thing. Like throughout the movie, or the early part of the movie, they were trying to figure out what was going on, and one character says, "Oh, it must have been something we ate that's doing this," and you're like, "What? That's weird." And then someone else is like, "Oh, it must be a disease, like a virus, that's doing this," and it's like, "Oh, that's weird." And then Ken Long says, "I know, it's the rocks. There's a special kind of mineral that's from the rocks that's making us age." And then I was like, "Yeah, let's go with that one."
Yeah.
Why is
Well,
that,
this
like, was that just the explanation that you go with? Like,
right.
that seems actually less uh less plausible than any of the other explanations that people came up with. So it's just,
And for the rest of the movie, you kind of have to assume he's right because
yeah.
there's no other help in understanding
Uh-huh.
what's going on.
Exact.
You're just
Yeah.
like, okay, we'll go with that, I guess.
Yeah. um
Um,
yeah,
I will
so
say,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say some spoiler stuff that I do, that I liked was the cave scene towards the end
Mm-hmm.
with the one of the girls is aging. They're all aging, but she has this crazy, like, weird body horror scene where
Uh-huh.
she's
Yeah.
like breaking all her bones, but then they're healing because she's
Uh-huh.
aging. They're all,
Yeah.
like fucked up, like that. That's like fun, cool horror stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was kind of
And
cool.
like the movie I think would have benefited from like it's like really campy, but like that would have been really fun. Like this
Mm-hmm.
movie fits that like
Yeah.
kind of aesthetic, and like they could have really done more like horror stuff. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's what's like for me that could have saved this movie, and like the awkward dialogue and stuff is if they brought in more. If you like The Visit, I think
Mm-hmm.
he does this really well in that movie,
Hmm.
which is he has all that like weird writing and performances that he does, but he keeps constantly he's throwing in like great horror like ideas and stuff
Mm-hmm.
just constantly throughout the whole movie. And
Nice.
so you don't have time to like sit there and think about like all
Mm-hmm.
these weird things that don't
Yeah.
feel right. It just keeps going, and this movie doesn't do that. It
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah. One thing I've been kind of coming back to a lot and saying a lot is no movie has to do anything, but
Mhm.
every movie has to do something.
Yeah.
Right. And what that means is like you can't say that you can't pick a movie and say or every movie has to have like great characters or like a big well-rounded cast or it has to have great dialogue. No movie has to have great dialogue or like this one thing. There's no like one rule where every movie has to do this thing, but every movie has to do something. Whereas like if you can just deliver on really interesting, clever horror ideas, then like
Hmm.
that's the thing that I can grab onto.
Yeah.
Or if it's just like this weird, crazy idea that like gets weirder and crazier throughout the movie until I'm just like blown away, then that's
Yeah.
the thing you've done, and I can go with that. But if you're not doing anything, or even if it's just a theme, just an
Yeah.
interesting theme, just an interesting idea, that's fine. I can. But when you don't do anything, I can't get on board. And I think this movie doesn't really do anything
Yeah.
for my money. Um, well,
Yeah.
there is an elephant in the room, though, Derek.
What's
That
that?
we probably should address, and that's the 6-year-old sex scene in the tent.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. It's weird.
Do you have any thoughts about
Another
any?
weird thing.
I think a lot
Well,
of other people, a lot of movie review shows have said a lot about it, and I don't know if there's much more we can say, but it's
yeah.
baffling.
It's just another like weird thing that he does in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's like totally inappropriate because I
Yeah.
think the way they do it, like it makes sense. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like
At that point, even though to give a context for anyone who hasn't seen the movie and doesn't really care to see the movie and is still listening, they are aging. Their bodies are aging, but their brains are still, obviously, their
they're not keeping
bodies
up
and
with like their bodies necessarily.
So these are like, adult actors playing maybe around. I think I heard someone mention that they were around 15, 16 years old, teenagers. But they still have like the minds and understanding of 6-year-olds, but probably like the hormones of teenagers, and it's certainly not shown in any way, but it's very heavily implied that they had sex and had a baby. She got pregnant and had a baby, and then the baby died, and that was the end of that.
Yeah.
That was the end of that story. Emotionally, plot, theme, that was just done. That was
There's God, this movie. There's like a whole thing about they actually dedicate I feel like quite a bit of time to the importance of food.
Mm-hmm.
At least for the children. I don't think the adults ever eat in the movie.
Correct.
Which I
think
don't
so.
fully understand.
Yeah.
Why that?
I mean, I guess
why
just
he wrote it like that,
the
but-
kids are growing, so they need the
Yeah.
food to be able to grow and add cells, but adults still lose cells and have to replace cells. Maybe they, I don't know. Maybe, it was probably like a 24-hour period or so that they condensed into hour and a half movie. So maybe you could just say they just didn't show the adults eating, but maybe they didn't have to eat as much as the kids, but it doesn't really make sense that they never.
I guess we can chalk it up to the scientists like figured out a way, like since they're not building mass necessarily like the kids are, they're actually physically growing, But that was just another weird thing. It's like as soon as you start thinking about it, like everything starts breaking down again. It's just like, but there's I don't know if you know about I don't know if it's a fear, but it's just absolute disgust in seeing people eat.
I didn't know that. I don't think I did.
I can't handle people eating, especially in like quiet, like it's a focus or anything. And there's a scene in there where the girl's like grabbing pasta, so
pasta
awkwardly
salad.
too. It's so weird. Like she's like so weird about it. I don't know. She just
I mean,
like
I guess
person,
she's like a 6-year-old brain, so I guess
oh, that's true. Yeah, it's just like pasta. She's just like shoving it in her mouth. And it's all like falling out. She's like, blah, blah, blah. It's like,
as she's getting more and more pregnant. I think that's the scene.
Yeah, it is.
Having to grow another baby in her.
Well, that was one of the scenes that I was like, that's like horrifying.
Yeah,
could have like went further with with that concept that seemed like it was being introduced for something, but it just didn't go anywhere really. So I mean, I don't know like how in the weeds with like the ending and everything we really need to get. I think it's kind of like it's kind of, it feels like it's pretty standard M. Night Shyamalan. Like it's this ending that's kind of a twist, recontextualizing thing, but
more of a reveal.
It's very heavy-handed.
Ham-fisted, kind of like kind of along the lines of The Village, I would say, more than any other one. It's like it's not. It's just kind of. It's not a twist like in The Sixth Sense, where the whole movie you thought this one thing. I won't spoil Sixth Sense, I guess, if someone hasn't seen it. But the whole movie you're thinking one thing, and then at the end of the movie, it's like nope. It's the exact opposite of that thing you thought.
Or even like as recent as Glass, like as much as, a lot of people didn't like the ending, but it works pretty well with the story because it does change your perspective of what like the doctors and the staff of the hospital were doing. You find out they're actually working for this whole other, there's a whole plot, and that works in with the plot, and it kind of makes sense. Like this doesn't do that. It's just like,
and then like the clever thing about Split is that you think you're watching like this kind of horror thriller about this
crazy
guy who abducts these kids, and the twist is that no, you're actually watching a superhero origin story. I guess I've spoiled that movie, but but those are clever, cool twists that he's done. This is less of a twist, more of a just kind of a tacked on reveal, I felt. And I kind of even think it doesn't really work. Like, it's kind of a clever idea to do science that normally takes 30 years to do. You can condense, but that's not really how, medical science works. You don't just have a drug and give it to one person and she didn't have a seizure for 15 years. It must, we're gonna give it. No, we're gonna give it to millions of people, and it's gonna. But you need to do these tests over. You need to have a sample size of thousands of people. You need to.
Yeah. Wait. That's another thing. Is how do they so they're selling the drug to somebody.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're supposed to assume that nobody checks the sources.
Yeah. I mean, they don't need FDA approval or anything for their drugs.
No clinical trials, nothing. Just trust us, it works. We've done the research. Okay. And then they're curing diseases by it.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it kind of,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
that would be fine, and I would buy into it. That'd be totally fine. It's just they tack it on at the end, and it just doesn't connect. It doesn't, like, it kind of just doesn't work to just have something tacked on at the end.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't know. Anyways,
It's a messy, silly, weird M Night
mm-hmm.
movie, and I think it's worth watching if you like um, M Night movie, and
Yeah,
if you're more forgiving of even his kind of lesser stuff, then you'll
yep,
probably have fun watching the movie. But
mm-hmm.
it's just kind of a mess at the same time. So
Yep. All right.
um,
Do
yeah.
you?
So anything else you wanted to add before we wrap this
No,
up?
I don't think so. Do you have a star rating that you would give it?
I don't. I'm thinking like 2.5, if I'm being
Yeah.
generous.
Yeah, that's
I will say
probably around
uh,
that.
at the same time, though, I'd probably say I enjoyed it more than that. Like, it's just hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to separate with this movie just because it's so
Yeah.
clunky
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
probably around a 2.5. Maybe like my 2.5 is because I kind of did enjoy this M Night Shyamalan aspect of it to the point where
yeah,
it bumped it up to a 2.5. But
yeah.
yeah.
And I do like appreciate seeing like new and original stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As weird or poorly executed as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I always give people credit for being willing to like do it and stick by it and get it all the way out into theaters and get people to come to it, stuff like that.
Yep.
Um,
Totally.
uh, but all right, well, that's
Mm.
it for our review of M. Night Shyamalan's Old.
Old.
I don't know that we've totally nailed down what we're reviewing next
I
week
think
yet.
it's just the Green Knight. If we can,
Oh, is that this week it
that
comes out?
comes out the
Oh, shoot.
30th. So yeah,
Yeah,
29th.
this weekend. Okay, yeah, so probably the Green Knight. Um, I'm sure Sean's gonna be on
Mm-hmm.
there,
Me and Brandon.
and you and Brandon.
There's like, I don't know. Do you guys want to do it? We've kind of
I mean, I think we're
mentioned.
all gonna see it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know schedule wise
Yeah.
yet, but we'll
I'm,
hammer that out.
I'm
But so
so
we'll
excited.
plan on David Lowery's The Green Knight
Mm-hmm. At
next
least me
week.
and Brandon.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a good one. We've been
Mm-hmm.
waiting for this movie for like years now, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like. So, um, yeah. All right. Well, that's
Cool.
our episode.
Good.
If you
Good to
want to,
talk with you.
yeah, it was good to talk to you.
Yeah.
I'm glad we finally got this episode out.
Uh huh.
Um, so yeah, if you guys just want to like and subscribe, and see you next week.
Bye.